Bonus!
Crew, what the hell is going on? Look out! Piper, now!
Here are these words. Here are the rhyme.
Crew, Piper, Paige, look!
Hear now the words of the witches.
Keep it going, Phoebe.
Hear now the words of the witches. The words of the witches. The words of the witches.
Crew, Piper, Paige, keep chanting.
Hear now the words of the
Keep
witches.
it going, Phoebe. Keep it going.
Hear now the words of the
Keep chanting.
words of the witches. Hear now the words of the
Finish the story.
Crew, Piper, Paige, look! Keep chanting.
Hear now the words of the witches.
Keep chanting.
What ass backward spell did you guys cast?
This is Kevin, and welcome to Words of the Witches.
Hear now the words of the witches.
Piper, Paige, look!
The words of the witches. The words of the witches. Hear now the words of the witches.
Keep chanting.
Hear now the words of the witches.
So, welcome to Words of the Witches bonus episode 13. And today I have a very special guest. We are going to be talking to Tess Fowler, artist on some of the issues of the comics. Hello. Well, welcome. I know we've all had our days, we've had our trying days, but we're going to have some fun. Yeah, shame we couldn't have you last issue when we talked about the triple crust issue, but now we have the opportunity to talk about all of it in a general term.
Yeah.
So yay.
And I have a question.
Yeah.
How many issues of Charmed did I draw?
3. I
Three.
believe 3.
I thought it was 2. I can't remember the third one.
So we
What was
had
the other one?
so which ones do you remember?
Okay, I remember the one we're talking about now, today, and then I remember oh my gosh, there was one that was all in pencil. And what is the third one? Because there's the
Okay.
detective story, there's the
Right.
like romance story. What was the third one?
There was it was Last Witch Effort. So it was right in the middle of all like the Nina upper region battles when she's trying to merge the worlds together.
That's the one with the babies, right?
Yes, I believe so.
I'm so
Yes.
confused.
Because you did,
I
'cause you did
remember,
Morality
like,
Bites Back, which was the Phoebe one-off one.
Yeah. Okay, I
Um,
remember drawing the art. I do not actually remember how it all goes together, but I remember very specific panels because I loved them, and I was so moody and emotional about getting it right, and that's why I didn't end up continuing on the series, was because I was like, no, listen, that's not where her tattoo is. Give me another day. I need to research. I was so like
yeah.
precise and accurate about it. So
And
that's
that's
so
something
crazy.
I always loved about you, because I could tell that you were so into the research. You were so, prepared to get things right, and such a fan.
What got you into Charmed? Like, what was the thing that just hooked you?
I was there from the very beginning of every original air date. I was just
Really?
yeah, I saw our original air date since the premiere, October 7th, 1998.
That is so cool, though.
Yeah, it is super cool. It was cool that I was around at the time when things were happening, when it was fresh, when it was new, waiting week by week for the next episode, not like this binge culture today.
Right. Right? Okay,
Um,
who's your favorite?
Mine is Prue. I'm a Prue person.
Really? What is it about
Yeah.
Prue?
I'm nothing like her at all. But I've always felt loved and safe and protected by her. And even though it might be a little unconventional way of showing it sometimes, she was more abrasive. She was a bit more, in your face about it.
That's true.
I knew she was there for us no matter what, and she would be willing to fight for us. And it was something that I admired a lot about her.
I love that. The show, when it premiered, again, I'm not sure how old you are, but
35, so a little younger than
35.
you.
Okay. I was 41, and it was very much met with a lot of like eye rolling. Like, who would watch that? So people gave it a really hard time, but it was also of the era of like Xena and Hercules and things could be a little cheese-tastic, a little
Right.
corny. And so it was one of those things that obviously, they're all gorgeous, they're all hot. So I was super like, okay, I'm present, I'm watching.
Yeah.
But there was such a devoted, fierce loyalty among the women on the show, or at least the characters. I know I heard some things behind the scenes maybe weren't all on the up and up.
Right.
Um, but I loved that because coming from the era of the movie The Craft, I, it was one of
Hmm.
those things that every girl my age was like suddenly into witchcraft, and many of them went on to be very serious Wiccan
Practitioners. Yeah.
practitioners,
It inspired a whole
so
bunch, the whole generation. Yeah, because we had the
it
craft,
so
practical
did.
magic was happening, hocus pocus was 1993, so it was like this whole witchy resurgence was happening.
Yes, exactly. And there was so much about it that, as a girl growing up during that time, it was very much of the era and very beautiful, very pretty. It was very much like, I want that house. Where is that? Never knowing. I did not know till like a few years ago that the house is here in Los Angeles. So I was so excited, and my husband and I were just exploring, and happened to walk in front of it.
That
And
is
so
so
my jaw was
funny.
like, "Do you know what that is?" That's so cool.
That's amazing to just happen upon it like
Yeah,
randomly. That's
yeah. I was
amazing.
like, I literally never knew it was here. So
Yeah, I remember I found out the address when I was like 14, like
did you
real
really?
young. While I was still on the air, I'm just like, I'm gonna go to LA one day and go there. And when I went, I went a couple times now. I sought it out especially, but yeah, it's amazing.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
That's very cool. You said you came down here, right? Did you get to go inside at all?
I did go inside. I interviewed the owners of the house for a podcast
What
past like
does it look
bonus
like on the
episode.
inside?
I mean, it's very similar to what you see on screen, like for the set, except smaller scale. Because they took for the set, they like took inspiration from the actual house and then just made it bigger and more spacious and more rooms and longer hallways and.
Cool.
But yeah, it has very. They took the decor, the furniture, and the feel of it all, and yeah, and made it kept it kind
That
of the
is so
same.
cool. Well, I guess obviously it would be way smaller. Let me turn my notifications off. Should have done that earlier. There we go. So, no, I have all the pages booted up on my phone, but I forgot to
Sure.
actually turn it all the way up.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how did you get into Charmed? How did you discover it?
Okay, so in yeah, around the time it premiered, I was like 15, 16-year-old teenager. Um, it was one of those situations where I did not have a good childhood at all. I'm the youngest of five. I'm the product of uh, someone going outside of their marriage when they already were married with children and things. So I didn't get a lot of acceptance within the family. And but me being a fantasy nerd, a nerd of all movies and TV shows, a cult, and also just loving pretty girls, it was one of those comfort shows where I watched it fairly religiously when it was first coming out, but I don't think I truly fell madly, hopelessly in love with it until much, much later into the 2000s when the reruns started coming,
Sure.
2 and 4 a day on cable. Um, and for me, having insomnia as bad as I did at that time from trauma, it became one of those things about 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. I could just binge Charmed to start my day. And so that's was my drawing time of the day. And especially once I hit my senior year, I was asked to stay home with my little foster brother, who I ended up, mostly raising for the first part of his life. And I should look at camera. Sorry about that. Um, he would get up in the morning and watch it with me.
Oh,
So he was very small, going, "What is this about?" So I'd pick him up, put him on my lap, and as I was drawing, he would eat his breakfast and we would watch Charm together. So I was actually teaching him about the old episodes and telling him like, oh my gosh, I can't wait till she comes in. Okay, this is their sister, and just giving him all of the lore and the background details and stuff. And that's when for me it just became something even more than just like a cheesy comfort show. It just, I don't know, it became like a bonding time. And then I ended up being estranged from my family for over a decade. So every time I would watch Charmed within that decade, it just reminded me of a better time,
Oh,
home. Because I grew up north, San Jose area. So it reminded me of San Francisco, and in a lot of ways, it reminded me of my mother because my mother
oh,
was very into herb lore and studying those types of things. So it was kind of a perfect storm, you know?
I love that. That's beautiful. I mean, and I think that's what Charmed does. Like, it really gives you something to connect to in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
And it's funny because, I just lost my mom, um,
yeah,
and the things, the way that they dealt with grief on the show,
yeah,
I always felt for it because felt for the characters and I felt sympathy for them. But now I think of those scenes and I experience it in a whole new way. Like everything that they showed is something I
yeah,
felt within these like past 5 days.
yep,
Uh, it's crazy. You feel the guilt, you feel the anger, you feel the upset with them, and then you feel like lost with direction, where to go, and it's really
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. It makes me wonder what were some of those writers going through at the time.
Mm-hmm.
There were things that they
Right.
wrote about where it was like, wow, that was really profound for just your average,
Yeah,
just your average TV show. That was kind of
it's
profound. Wow.
spot on,
Yeah,
and like it's crazy to have like really truly experienced it now. I have like a whole new connection to the show.
yeah,
Um,
for sure.
yeah. So when you're a fan of the show, which is great. When did you start to get involved with the comics?
So early on in my career, um, well, round about 2009 is when I went through the estrangement, and I came out of it. I had been doing sketch cards and things like that. Um, but I knew a lot of people within the comic book community, so there were a lot of people pulling for me, and it was just basically a hookup with the company. So I started out doing a couple other things for the company, and then I forget who asked me. It was just like, hey, what else would you be interested in? And I was like, Charmed. I want Charmed. You have Charmed? I want Charmed. And they were like, really? You don't seem like that kind of person. And I was
Yeah.
like, what kind of person do I seem like? Pretty girls, occults, wonderful TV show. Like, bring it on. Come on. This is my jam. But
Yeah.
I had very much, of course, hoped to become the main artist. I don't remember what happened, but one of the artists was transitioning out, and I wanted it. So I brought my A game, but it was very, very early in my professional career. And what an editor wants is like, can you do it on time? I don't care if it's done right. Is the company who's approving this okay with it? Do they approve it? And is it done fast? That was all they wanted. Well, me at the
Yeah.
time was like, oh no, I must have everything accurate. I must have every tattoo correct. Um, and they gave me a really, really hard time about doing anything stylistically at the time, which was hard. So we went through a lot of back and forth and that's why you see at one point I was just using photos for reference because they
Right.
didn't like when I just went off book and like drew them my
Oh.
own way. But Charmed was actually my, how do I say it? The bigger, one of the larger projects that got me kind of kicked into gear and going on my career. So it was one of those things where I wanted it very badly. I asked for it, I got it, and then they didn't want me to have it.
Oh.
So it was a lesson. It was very much a lesson
Yeah. I mean, because
for
yeah, and
many,
that
many
season.
projects after that.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that it gave you at least the spark into something else.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about the season 9 is because it was cycling through artists a lot.
Yeah.
People were quitting and complications, and you can tell that they wanted it fast because some of the work suffered. I could tell.
Yeah.
But whenever your issues came, it was like a breath of fresh air. I was like, these are beautiful. um,
Thank you.
so
What I had
it's nice
always
to hear.
wanted from any kind of Charmed comic or art related situation, I wanted detail because the set was so rich and beautiful. The colors were beautiful, but at the time it was like, okay, we don't even want you to ink it, just draw it in pencil and we'll color it. And it just to me seemed very drab. And so that book is actually the start of me wanting to paint my own work, ink
Mm,
my own work, paint my own work, and just why can't I make comics this way? Because I felt, especially if you look in my work, you can see how I'm trying so hard to be accurate and I'm trying so hard to get the likenesses correct because they're all very beautiful women, but they're beautiful in different ways. And as far as like fashion or body type or anything like that, I wasn't allowed. They didn't want it. And there was very much also a rule of like, oh, too sexy, too much midriff, we can't have that. And I'm like,
isn't
it's
that what you
bathing.
do? Yeah, I mean, have you seen your other comics, Cinescope? Like,
Exactly. Exactly. But for some reason, whoever was giving us the approvals, whoever
I guess the
I
producers
forget
or
who owned it
something.
at that time, was very
Probably
adamant about,
CBS.
yeah. So they were very adamant about like, no, 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 pull the shirt down, more conservative. And it was like, ugh,
Oh,
that
yeah.
feminine power, that feminine energy was very much choked. And now I
Wow.
don't even remember what you asked. I'm sorry. I
What did
go
I
off
ask?
on
Oh,
tangents.
no, no. It was just about how you got involved with the comics. So I think we got the answer. Now we're just talking about it.
Yes,
So
there we
we're good.
go. All right, we're good. We're good. Man, as you can tell, I have opinions. So many
Yeah.
opinions.
Well, that's great, and I had fun because I'm such a huge like connoisseur of the show. I got your references immediately. I'm just like, oh, this is like this, and this is like this, and so it was really fun. All of yours were like huge in my "You Look Familiar" section of the show.
I love that because when you showed it, I was like, ah, I got caught. But of course a fan would know. And there
Yeah.
were so many things where, and again, that was so directly because of the criticism I was receiving. I would draw them and they would look at it and go, no, that's not them. And what they were looking for was like an exact replica, um, like almost a Greg Land tracing type situation.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually I got so frustrated, and being a young artist, it was like, all right, fine, I'm gonna look at this and draw it. And that was the issue. They were like, genius, yes, more of this. It's like, this is so uncreative. Fine.
Wow.
But that is essentially what it means to be a freelance artist. You're delivering what someone else thinks is art. You don't bring your brain or your personality to it, or
Mm,
else we'll get someone else, you know?
wow. Well, I can
Yeah.
imagine how that could be trying and weird for the psyche if you're not really being as creative as you could and want to be.
And I was also young. I was
Yeah.
also a
Right.
lot younger. Um, I was new to the scene, did not realize how awful the comic book industry actually was. I was very hopeful, very like, yay, I'm bringing talent. And they were like, no, no. But I can credit working on that series with who I am today. Who I am post cancer as an artist, as a creator. Like, I've gone on to do memoir work because I have like a crazy backstory, crazy origin story.
Mm.
So I've gone on to do exactly what I want to do. I can paint it the way I want to paint it, ink it the way I want to ink it, draw pretty girls who are actually pretty. So,
Yeah. Good. Well, good. Yeah, but
yeah,
you've had a journey for sure. I think everybody
yeah,
has, but it's different, when you can really like pinpoint your adventures.
yes, yes.
um, So you did 3. And I think triple cross was your favorite, correct? Thinking about it.
It's hard. I think I like something
Different
from each of
ways.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
Okay.
something for each of them. And what's crazy is the intergenerational. There's a big intergenerational pinup in one of my issues, and that specific panel is where I first started thinking about generations of women, which is what my memoir is about. It's
Yeah.
talking about my grandmother's story and my mother's story
Oh,
of survival, and then me dealing with cancer.
yeah.
So it's
Wow.
so funny how much of my world, my work is tied back to that beginning, you know?
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
but no, I don't think I have a favorite. I
Yeah.
can't.
And it's very much the spirit of Charmed when you think about it. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I was perfect for it.
It was meant to be. uh, wow. Well, we do have something for this episode. We're not going to do your issue, but I found this. This is actually double crossed, like the story that was pieced together based off of the Charmed Noir episode.
All right, so how are we going to do this? You do a page, I do a page, or how do you want to do it?
Um, I'm going to read the back of it first, because there's a whole description about the book, and then I guess we'll go by chapters, because the chapters are like 2 pages each. So
Okay,
we'll each read a chapter and then describe if there's any pictures, and go from
sure.
there. Cool. So this is Double Crossed, the novel, the story by the Mullen brothers and the Hallowell sisters, because that's how it ended at the end of the episode. And it says, set in the sultry 1930s, this harrowing tale of deceit and greed will ensnare any noir fan. In a city where the cops are as bad as the criminals, nothing is black and white. It's a topsy-turvy world, and 2 private detectives are all that stands for decency in it. When a stranger appears in their office asking them to research for a priceless object, it sends them on the adventure of a lifetime. They must battle hot-headed gangsters and vicious coppers, all of whom want the object for themselves. Along the way, they're seduced by the sins of the city, as well as a femme fatale or 2. And if these private eyes don't wind up with the object at the end of the journey, they might wind up dead. Oh. In the Mullen brothers' first original novel, they have crafted an inventive tale that will take the publishing world by storm. Critics will rave that the magic of this book is in the skillful telling. The details transport the reader, back to a fully realized world of the 1930s. In this unique adventure, you'll feel like you're actually there with them, dodging Tommy gun blast, ducking corrupt cops. There's no way you'll be able to put this book away until you've gotten to the end, because you can't escape. If you're sucked in, you can't escape until you get to the end. But brace yourself. This story is not for the weak of heart. Only true heroes will make it all the way through to discover the shocking conclusion. So before you take the plunge, you must decide for yourself. Will you be crossed or double crossed? That's pretty inventive. That's cool.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right, who's going first?
You can decide. What do you think?
Am I starting with chapter 8?
Yeah, chapter 8, because we don't get anything else. It starts with chapter 8 in our version of the book. This is almost
Okay,
like excerpts. We don't have the full book. We have excerpts of what we think is there. So
nice. Okay. All right, am I doing the full page?
yeah, go ahead.
All right, on it. Double cross, chapter 8. The street was quiet after Shorty died, too quiet. And then, as if from nowhere, 2 strangers arrived into the city on foot. One, a beautiful dame named Lana, the other, the Fed. Lana couldn't help but notice what a gray, dreary day it was. She could feel that something wasn't quite right. It was a big city, but even so, their sudden emergence caught the attention of a car pulling up to them, of which 3 men in suits stepped out. Well, well, what do we have here? Asked one of the men, stepping out of the vehicle. I totally don't remember who was in this episode and what voices they used, so I'm just gonna use my own.
Of course.
Let's see. Well, well, what do we have here? Asked one of the men, stepping out of the vehicle. A couple of newcomers, pals of Shorty's. It took a second for Lana and the Fed to register exactly who Shorty was. Yeah, she replied. Maybe we are. What's it to you? The man, who was speaking with noticeably pursed lips, was taken aback by her confident response. Don't get wise with me, Legs, he said. You're here for the same reason that Shorty was, looking for the Falcon, ain't you? The Falcon? Lana and the Fed's ears perked up. Well, it belongs to Johnny, Lips continued. Whoever this Johnny was, the Fed had no interest in meeting him. Look, I think you have us confused with somebody else, he tried to explain. Maybe that will get rid of Lips and his loons.
Yeah. And you have like this picture of like the traffic, I guess. And you can continue on this page too then.
Yeah, that one. Lips shot a look at the Fed. Nah, I don't think so. Suddenly, the Fed saw that the other two men, who have been noticeably quiet, have each pulled out a gun. He reached for his own. And then a series of shots were fired, like fireworks in the streets. But there was nothing to marvel at. Cars, streetlights, farmer stands, nothing was safe from the destruction of their rifles. Run! Just run! Shouted the Fed, and he and Lana made their way through the streets as bullets continued to ricochet around them.
So yeah, that's
Alright.
right after Paige and Kyle were sucked in, and they have these new personas, and there we go. They're in the story.
Love
It's
it.
crazy. All
Alright, you
right,
want to go next?
yeah, chapter 9. So Mullen Brothers Detective Agency. Lana read off the door. Ah, they're dicks. I remember when that happened. I laughed. The Fed chuckled at the innuendo. Oh, see that here they actually tell you that's innuendo.
Yeah, exactly.
She's like, no, like private eyes, detectives. She clarified, rolling her eyes at the Fed. They opened the door to see a smoke-filled office occupied by two men, one older wearing a suit and sitting behind a desk, the other a younger gentleman with a top hat and a long coat standing before him. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Lana apologized. The newcomers? Asked the older man. Eddie, I thought you said you didn't know them. The younger gentleman looked over at the two strangers. I don't. I've never seen them before in my life. Wait a minute, you're Eddie? The Fed asked. The boy he was looking at couldn't have been older than 17. You got a problem with that? Eddie asked. No, we were just expecting somebody older, Lana clarified, trying to hide any bit of nervousness she was feeling. The older man looked up and down at Lana. You're like older toots? You gotta take a gander my way. Ew. Hey, why don't you gander somewhere else, buddy? Said the Fed. Who are you? The older man stood up as if to tower over the Fed. My name's Johnny. Johnny the Gent. His voice was low and raspy with an air of confidence. Or was it arrogance? Thought the Fed. I think you made the acquaintance of a few of my boys. Johnny, right? Said the Fed. Yeah, I think they dropped your name in between Tommy gun blasts. Johnny let out an amused, controlled chuckle. Simple misunderstanding. Everyone's on edge on account of the Falcon. The Falcon is in the Maltese Falcon? Asked Lana. Nah, said Eddie. Everyone knows the Maltese was a fake. This one's the real deal. The Burmese Falcon. The, the Fed chuckled in disbelief. Burmese? You can't be serious. It's a total ripoff. Ripoff or no, Johnny started. I figured that's why you're here. His eyes zeroed in on the two strangers. You don't happen to know where it is, would ya? Maybe we do. But that's between us and Eddie, said Lana. She looked over at the teenage boy. We have business to discuss. Alone. Thanks, I got enough business. Eddie turned away as if the strangers would be out of sight and out of mind. Please, you're the only one who can help us. See, we came from your school. We just can't seem to find our way back. Be polite, Eddie, nudged Johnny. Hear him out. Besides, it might be lucrative. He shot a last look at Lana and the Fed before stepping out. I'll be in touch. Oh.
All right, my turn.
Yeah.
Chapter 10. Eddie led Lana and the Fed into a private office. You don't seem too happy to see us, the Fed noticed. Ooh, typo.
Oh.
Typo.
Typo.
Well, should I be? Asked Eddie, throwing his hat onto a rack. He grabbed a cigarette from a desk and held up a lighter. What are you doing? Don't you know those things will kill you? If the smokes don't get me, Eddie answered, the bullets will. Just like they got your brother? Asked Lana. They were short on time, and she had no problem steering the conversation straight to the point. Eddie wasn't ready to discuss the loss of his brother to these strangers. How did they even know about him? Look, what happened, Eddie? The Fed asked. Who killed him? Eddie took a moment to perch onto the edge of the desk. He gulped, finding the words to explain what he still hasn't processed. It was a couple of corrupt cops. They were trying to stop him from getting to the Falcon before they did. Again with the Falcon, Lana thought. What is it with this Falcon? Why does everybody want it so badly? It's their whole motivation, Eddie vaguely explained. Anyways, I can't leave this place until the Falcon is found. You don't know where it is? Asked Lana. No, Eddie answered with a hint of defeat. Enough was enough. The feds had try that again. The feds had enough of this place. Look, kid. Suddenly the phone on the desk sounded its bells. Hello? Eddie answered. This is Eddie. Hold the line, please. He looked over at Lana and the Fed. Would you mind? No problem, said Lana, and then she and the Fed stepped out. All right, go ahead, Johnny. Nah, they don't know anything about the Falcon, but I think... Why am I saying it like the Millennium Falcon? Stop it. Falcon, but I think they're going to be trouble anyway. Moments later, he stepped out of the office to find the newcomers in the midst of conversing. Good news, he announced. That was an anonymous source, giving me a lead on the Falcon. I caught myself. I'll go get my car. Something about this didn't feel right to the Fed.
So then, chapter 11, we have them in the car.
In the car, exactly.
Yeah.
They don't quite look like they fit, but it's good.
Yeah, like squished like a clown car. So, chapter 11. Eddie Mullen wasn't the kind of guy who was used to stabbing people in the back. He was nervous. Nervous these newcomers would figure him out. He didn't want to sell them out, but he was left with no choice. They were in the way. Thankfully, it all seemed to be going according to plan. Riding in Eddie's car, Lana and the Fed had no idea they were being driven straight into a trap. The car rumbled through the city streets like a hearse on its way to a funeral. Lana sat in the back seat looking around at all the tall buildings. The people in the city took it all for granted, but she didn't. She'd never been to the big city before. She'd never seen anything like it. It was a dream come true for her, but it was about to become a nightmare. The Fed wasn't as entranced by the city. His mind was on Eddie. He didn't trust him. Where exactly are you taking us? The Fed asked, wondering what Eddie was hiding. If I told you, would it make a difference? Eddie responded, dodging the question. You don't know this city. Lana turned to the Fed, believing he was in danger of scaring Eddie away. Relax, she said, hoping to calm the Fed. He's trying to help. But Lana was dead wrong. Eddie wasn't on their side at all. He just wanted to get rid of them, and he was starting to think he might actually succeed. And then we have some, Phoebe writing, putting a little twist in there. Oh!
I love
Then
that.
they suddenly got a flat tire. The little details, I know.
It's very cool.
So Phoebe is there writing the story with there. And then, what the hell was that? Asked the Fed. It's a flat tire, Eddie explained. He himself confused as to how it could have been possible. But the clock was ticking. He began to exit the car. The Fed was quick to stop him from taking another step. Whoa, where are you going? It's just up around the corner. We can get there on foot, said Eddie. On foot? Something was off. Very off. Oh, come on, you're lying, accused the Fed. Ease up, warned Lana. He's lying. Eddie, I want answers and I want them now, the Fed demanded. Suddenly, sirens began to blare as a police car pulled up next to them. A large man stepped out from the passenger seat. I think you got your answer, said Eddie. He opened his side of the car and began conversing with the large man. We were wondering what's taken so long, Eddie, said the man. We've been waiting. Lana watched nervously. Eddie, she began, what's going on? It took Eddie a moment to find his words. I'm sorry to do this to you. It may not have seemed as if he were sincere, but he truly was. Really, I am. Lana and the Fed suddenly found the car surrounded by uniformed men holding pistols to their head. The couple knew they had been double-crossed, and there was no way out.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. The name of the episode.
Crossed. Double-crossed.
All right, chapter 12. The light was blinding as the Fed sat beneath it. He wasn't used to being on this side of an interrogation. He was used to being in charge, asking the tough questions, getting the dirt on who rubbed out whom. But this wasn't his town, and it wasn't his interrogation room. And he would have treated... Hey! Typo. He would have treated any common criminal better than he was being treated right now. There we go. I can do it.
You can do
Love that illustration. I don't care why you're here, Lieutenant Snyder said menacingly as the Fed sweated under the hot light. All I'm interested in is the Falcon. The Fed considered the man before him. Snyder had an edge, a fierceness that made him seem like he might snap at any moment. His eyes blazed hatred, full of contempt for all that the Fed stood for. The lieutenant seemed more criminal than cop, but that was the kind of city this was. It was like a jail run by the inmates. If the Fed had been arrested alone, he might have tried lying to Snyder, but he was afraid that might make Snyder even angrier, and Lana might end up paying the price. No, whatever was coming, the Fed planned to take the brunt of it himself. You got it all wrong, friend, the Fed said coolly. I knew even less about the Falcon than you do. Snap! Like a wild bull unleashed, Snyder let loose, walloping the Fed with a bully stick.
Oh!
There's no more, wait!
There's no more! So chapter 13. Oh, this is the one where Paige, or Lana, is like seducing. I love it. Get your paws off me, said Lana. Lana realized that this cop wasn't brave. He was stupid. The type of stupid a man becomes when he sees a dame he can't resist. He liked this girl. She had spunk. There was no one in the city quite like her, and he wanted her all to himself. So tell me, what's a cute... I know, it's... So tell me, what's a cute little package like you doing mixed up with that no-good Fed in there? He asked her. The question made Lana sick to her stomach. She wanted nothing to do with slime balls like him. All she wanted was to get out of there. Drop dead, said Lana, ignoring the dirty cop's advances. Then the dirty cop said, another Phoebe thing here, Phoebe input. Then the dirty cop said, come on, sister, don't you know how to play the game? So a clue to tell her sister to play along, flirt with him. You're a little heartbreaker, aren't you? Suggested the cop. A regular femme fatale. And just like that, Lana knew the game. And she knew exactly what she had to do. And she's like, maybe I am. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm just crazy. Crazy for cops. Tough cops. Cops, the kind of cops that'll arrest your heart, make you long for a life sentence with them. Like a moth to the flame, she had no problem pulling in the dirty cop closer to her face. You know any cops like that? She was good. Very good.
I love Rose.
It was amazing. I always loved it.
Yeah. Chapter 14. We can keep this up all night if you'd like, said Snyder, watching the Fed squirm on the floor as he struggles to find the strength to get up. Or you can tell me where the Falcon is, and I'll end it, but quick. Is that supposed to be a choice? The Fed groaned. Yeah, either you... Oh, it's on the bend. Either you die fast or you beg for death, but either way, I'm getting the Falcon out of you first. Kyle! Suddenly the door busted open and the Fed's ears perked up at the familiar call of his name, pulling both his and Snyder's attention. There was Lana standing with a pistol in hand. He knew she could do it. With Snyder distracted, the Fed kicked Snyder and flipped him on his behind. Snyder's gun flew out of his hands, landing nicely into the Fed's. You all right? Lana said. I'll live, said the Fed. How'd you get in here? I seduced a cop, grabbed his gun, and knocked him out. The usual. He knew she was good. Come on, we've got to find Eddie. I love it.
All right, so 15 is the last chapter, and it's long. It's the longest chapter, so we'll just take page by page for this one.
Okay.
All right, so chapter 15. Eddie! Called Lana as she and the Fed stormed into the office. As the chair behind the desk spun, she saw that it wasn't Eddie waiting for her. It was Johnny. Sorry to disappoint you, he said, gun in hand, and aimed at her. The Fed reached for the pistol in his holster, but not before Johnny changed his target to him instead. Drop it, Johnny demanded. Fearing for Lana's safety, the Fed obliged and dropped his pistol. Where's Eddie? He asked. I sent him out to look for the two of you, Johnny explained. I heard you got away from the cops. Too bad you're not going to get away from me. And with the sleight of his finger, Johnny pulled the trigger, and the bullet blasted into the Fed's chest. Lana watched in horror as the Fed fell to the cold floor. Forget about him, sweetheart, said Johnny. His number's up. He got up from his seat, walking over to take a closer look at Lana. Please, she begged. We just want to get out of here. That's all, I swear. Help! I'm sorry, but if I want to get the Falcon out of Eddie, I can't leave any loose ends hanging about.
Lana stared at the Fed's near lifeless body on the floor, watching a Rorschach test of blood forming over his wound. Now listen, Johnny demanded. In a couple minutes, it's gonna be over for your friend over there, but you're a knockout. Another pig, thought Lana. Please, don't make me waste a bullet on you. Suddenly, the door swung open. It was Eddie, his eyes scanning the scene in horror as he tried to comprehend the situation. What's going on here? Eddie, I didn't expect you so soon, said sorry. Eddie, I didn't expect you so soon, said a nervous Johnny, a distinct shift from the confident killer Lana had just witnessed not 10 seconds ago. They came looking to get even, for you setting them up. More lies. That's not true, said Lana. He killed my friend in cold blood, just like he killed your brother. What? What are you talking about? Asked Eddie. It couldn't have been true, could it? Don't listen to her, Eddie, Johnny interjected. You know the cops killed your brother. You know that. That's not true, Lana cried. You didn't see it, did you, Eddie? It's just a story that Johnny's been telling you. Don't you see? He's been playing you. He tried to force Dan into giving him the falcon, but he wouldn't give it up. So now he's trying to charm you out of it.
Yeah. And so, next page. Eddie couldn't believe his ears. That's it, said Johnny. Didn't matter how much of a knockout this girl was. He had enough of her. Say goodnight, Gracie. Johnny raised his gun on her and pulled the trigger. I know, using a classic over here. He raised the gun on her and pulled the trigger, but the gun jammed. Of all the rotten luck, it made him furious. He couldn't put his dame on ice and been done with. He could have put his dame on ice and been done with it. The falcon would have been his. Now he might never get it. Rude. But to Lana, this was just the break she needed, and she was thankful that fate had smiled on her. I could use a flashback right now. Lana muttered, desperate to get through to Eddie. She was hoping to make him see that Johnny had killed his brother. Johnny smiled, believing this dame had lost her mind. There was no way Eddie was going to believe her over him. But then we have another Phoebe write-in, changing the story with twists. It says, then Eddie found out how Dan really died. It was as if it was happening all over again. A dark alley. Johnny pushing Dan up against the wall. Johnny throwing a deep punch into Dan's gut before putting bullets in his body. And angry Johnny swearing he would then get the falcon from Eddie. Premonition, flashback, yes, gasp. Suddenly, Eddie was pulled out of the past and back to reality. How could he have been so blind? Eddie, you have to stop punishing yourself, said Lana. This is not your... And then it continues on this page, which I'm going to have you read. This is so you get to finish the line. This is not your...
Okay. I'm ready.
Come on, send.
Come on.
Okay, it should be sending now. There.
Okay. Set me up again.
This is not your...
Fault. That was a terrible hesitation. Okay, this is not your fault. Your brother would not want you to live this way, as if you were in some kind of prison. He would want you to grow up, to live your life, to become part of the real world. Suddenly, the sound of sirens in the street filled the room. Cops! Exclaimed Johnny. He tightly gripped onto Lana. That's it. Give me the falcon now or I'll break her neck. Dang! Don't! Lana begged Eddie. It's your only way out. All right, enough was enough. Just because his own actions had led himself here doesn't mean that Lana should pay the price. Don't hurt her. I'll give it to you. Johnny stared suspiciously. This better not be a trick, kid. It's not, Eddie sighed. I should have done this a long time ago. He walked over to a framed painting on the wall by his desk. This was it. He knew what he had to do. There was no other way. He lifted the painting to reveal a hidden wall safe behind the artwork. He unlocked the safe with a few turns of a dial and reached inside. Johnny couldn't believe his eyes. There it was, the Burmese falcon. Where did you find it? Johnny asked, his wide eyes glued onto the sculpture in Eddie's hands. It was real, and he was looking right at it. His reason for being, his only motivation. It doesn't matter, said Eddie. All that matters is no one else dies because...
of it. He shot Lana a look, her eyes silently begging him to hold on to the falcon. Let her go. Johnny quickly obliged, his hands releasing Lana from their grip. Give it to me. Come on, I gotta go. This, Eddie began, is how it ends. And without hesitation, he released the falcon from his hands onto the floor. The once highly coveted Burmese falcon was now shattered into 100 worthless pieces. And then nothing else. That's when they're sucked out of the book. and they go, we're back in the real world, and the book closes, and it says, and the Halliwell sisters. Ta-da!
Love it. That was cool. I like that.
It was cool.
Yeah,
And
very neat.
yeah, it's like the episode, but we got to see it like through novel form.
I love it.
Well, thanks for joining me on that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. I'm so sorry I couldn't make it to the other one, but I'm so glad I made it to this one.
Yeah, I'm so happy we got to do this, and with all the crazy and all that jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you ever need anything else, please let me know.
For sure. Tell people where they can follow you and if they want to see what you're all up to and all your amazing work.
You can follow me on Instagram at, let me double check. Is it still Tess Fowler 7? I stopped using Twitter. I used to live on Twitter, and I stopped using it because, it's
Crazy.
Armageddon and it's yucky over there.
Yeah.
Tess Fowler 7, TESSFOWLER and the number 7 on Instagram, and that is where I am all the time when I'm not on TikTok.
Okay.
But I only go on TikTok, to study different rabbit holes of information. So Instagram's where I post and interact.
Great. Well, good. Well, we know where to find you because that's my primary place too. Yeah.
Mine too. Thank you so much for this.
You're welcome. Yeah,
I can't
really
wait to
happy.
go back and watch all the other episodes.
Yeah. It's lots of fun times, lots of fun information and fun analyses. So
yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, for everybody else, you can follow this podcast at Words of the Witches, all the places. Words of Witches if you want to do it on Twitter, but I still don't like it either. I only go there for this podcast. So
Twitter is yucky.
Yeah, Twitter is yucky. Anymore. I know. I mean, I never really liked it. I only did it because I know people were there.
Yeah, it was like for a little while for me, Twitter was very safe. It was a place where like I had cultivated a great audience and everybody was safe with me. It was like, I mean, other than, hateful, awful people, like they got to stay out. But it was safe for all the rest of us. And honestly, once Musk took over, it wasn't anymore.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have been targeted, so I don't support it. I don't put my energy there. I can't do it.
Yeah.
But I used to live there, so it's like
it's crazy.
It's weird.
It's insane. Well, yeah.
Seriously, but anyway, so lovely to meet you. So lovely to hang out. I loved it. I would love to do it again. So.
Well, thank you. We'll be in touch, and we'll always be willing to talk again. I'm very happy.
Very sure.
Thank you.
Right on. All right. Have a great
Bye.
night.
You too.
Bye.